As the years go on with film, media, and the internet, it's easy to see the most grotesque, vile, and disturbing things out there. And unfortunately for some people, they have become desensitized to it from seeing too much of it. But before we had Live Leak and the movie Martyrs, the Saw movies, and Cannibal Holocaust, we had a 1975 war film called Salo, or The 100 Days of Sodom. Now before I get into this tragedy of a film, I want to give you a little background. First off, this film was made in 1975, but the film is a partial adaptation of Marquis de Sade's novel, written in 1785, when he was imprisoned in Bastille, Italy. The novel was written on a continuous long piece of paper. The manuscript was actually lost in 1789 during the storming of Bastille by the French, but it was found in 1904. The novel was called The 100 Days of Sodom, or The School of Libertige. The novel was written to show the critique of wealthy people in power doing horrible sexual and physical violence. It's a heavy book that smacks you over the head and makes you think what's morally right, and, like a lot of philosophers do, challenge your belief in God and religion in general. Marquis de Sade was not a religious man, and depicts a lot of horrible things that happen in this novel with the idea of there is no God, and humans are animals, and function as animals with their wants, needs, and impulses. But enough about the book. I'll give you a very vague intro to the book to get into the movie. The book plot shows 4 people in power: a judge, a banker, a duke, and a bishop, who are very wealthy, and winter is coming up, and they want to do not good things. So, all 4 of them go into a castle in the winter and bring a harem of 36 teenage boys and girls. I told you it was disturbing, you read the title. So basically in the book, it takes place during the late 1800s. So the movie version of that is the same, but instead of taking place in 1780, it takes place during World War II. And the 4 people in power are all fascists in Italy. Essentially, the war was coming to an end, and they know they'd eventually be killed because they are fascists in Italy, going to be taken over by the Allies. They spent the last few months of their lives doing heinous crimes. And although the film is a work of fiction, some of the horrors showed in this film is some things that the director Pier Paolo Pasolini witnessed during the fascist reign in Italy during World War II. Whew! This one's going to be rough, everybody. Let's get into this movie. Before I get into this, viewer discretion is advised. Very bad stuff happens in this movie. I won't show any of the graphic scenes, but I will talk about them. So if you feel uncomfortable and don't want to watch it, click off the video. I won't blame you. And for God's sakes, if you're under 18, don't watch this. Keep your innocence. Go play Mario Kart World and watch brain rot content. I won't blame you. I'd rather you be cringed than ruin your innocence. But that's all I got for this. Let's get into the film. The film is broken down into 4 parts, which I will summarize each one individually, and these parts are inspired by the Divine Comedy, or more specifically, Dante's Inferno. Which, you know, Dante's Inferno, each layer gets worse and worse and worse for the people inside. The first part is the Circle of Anticipation. The anticipation of this is similar to Dante at the gates of hell. He's worried about the horror that awaits him. He's given information of each layer that he will go through. And this is what the movie correlates with, what will happen to these young men and women in this prison. The film starts in Salo, Italy, where we see the 4 fascists, the Duke, the Bishop, the Magistrate, and the President, where the 4 men come to an agreement on the rules and laws they will permit for the 100 days of torture they will be doing to these young men and women. We next see the police in Salo tracking down young men and forcing them at gunpoint to take part as guards for the fascist 4. Although these young men are forced to be there, we soon see some of them aren't exactly too mad to be there, and we will see why. They also recruit 4 men called the Studs because they got big swinging dongs, and they also recruit 4 prostitutes. So the first thing that happens in this movie is the fascists plan to marry each other's daughters. It only gets worse from here, everybody. Also, this is off topic, but every time the prisoners are forced to do something, they usually comply to go do it, but the guards are always super aggressive. Like, there's a scene, I believe, the Duke tells the prisoners to go into the next room, and they all do, but one guard will just grab a prisoner and start shoving him and just pushing him really aggressively, and it's so unnecessary, but gross at the same time. But I guess that's what the movie is going for, which it's just very random stuff. We then see the boys lined up in front of the 4 fascists, and they observe them and look at some of the male prisoners' members. And yes, it is very uncomfortable. Then it goes to the female prisoners, and they do the same thing, and it is even more uncomfortable. We then see the prisoners all lined up outside, being told the horrors that they will go through. A full 100 days of torture. Then, that is the end of the first circle. We then get into the next circle, which is the Circle of Manias. This circle starts with everyone in the main hall, and one of the prostitutes comes out and lectures everyone on her childhood. The prostitute goes on to say when she was in boarding school, she was paid to pleasure one of her professors, stating the professor was J.O.ing it and was teaching the young lady how to do it. She rambles about this pedophilic story, basically to arouse the fascists in the room, and during the speech, the magistrate gets mad at the prostitute for not mentioning the size of the professor's cock. Just thought that was kind of random. I don't know, kind of weird. As she continues the speech, we see the bishop take a young boy into another room. The bishop comes out of the room with the boy moments later, furious at the boy for disobeying him. And we see the president write the boy's name in a black book. Anyways, the prostitute starts talking about drinking piss. Then one of the young men starts pleasuring the duke in front of everyone. As this goes on, one of the young women tries to escape through a window, but is ultimately stopped by the guards. Alright, so this is where the depravity starts to pick up, as some of the young women are humiliated at the dinner table by being forced to serve food naked, and they are heckled by the guards. Then, one of the young women is tripped by one of the studs, and then the stud assaults the woman. While this is happening, the president goes around the dinner table and starts mooning everyone. Then eventually, he goes beside the stud, which he is assaulting the woman still. Then the stud starts to have sex with the president. Just complete disgusting nature and ultimate depravity. I will say, during this scene, all the studs, fascists, and guards are laughing. But there is one guard who's keeping his head down and not laughing and keeping his business to himself. This guard is Ezio, and he is the only person in power who seems to not like what he's doing and is actually distressed by what he is witnessing. But anyways, going back to the story. We go back to the main hall, and we see the girl who plays the piano commits unaliving. Hi, this is me from the future. I made a mistake here. This girl who commits the unaliving is the same girl who tried to escape in this scene. She's not the piano player. Also, anytime I say 100 Days of Sodom, I mean 120 Days of Sodom. I don't know why I kept saying 100. I'm an idiot. But, back to the video. Then the president was thinking how much of a buzzkill that was and tells a story to make everyone laugh. We then get another story from the prostitute. This time she talks about her first time being a prostitute, and she rambles about how it went. It's just a bunch of slop of her having sex with a man to get the fascists aroused. The president then talks about asses and states it's the best part of the body, and you can't tell the difference between a man's ass and a woman's ass. And this will definitely come back into play later in the movie. You will see. Our next scene shows a young boy and a young girl get married, and during the ceremony, the Duke just starts groping a bunch of the dudes and a bunch of the girls, and then the guards, and then the studs, and dude, like, I don't know. I don't know why he does this. He just starts groping everyone in the room. It's very uncomfortable. Then the young female and the young male get married, and then the fascists force the two to make love. But as they're about to make love, the Duke and the President break it up, then they start to assault the young couple. Then while this is happening, the magistrate starts to have sex with the Duke while the Duke is still assaulting the female. After that awfulness, our next scene shows all the young males and females on leashes acting like dogs. And they are all fed like dogs. And the fascist four all start petting them and giving them food in bowls. And for some reason, the magistrate starts whipping one of the young boys until he is unconscious or dead, I can't tell. And then for no reason at all, he grabs a pile of mashed potatoes, puts nails in it, and gives it to one of the female prisoners. And she just bites down, and her mouth starts bleeding. Oh my goodness. We then get another story from the prostitute. While that's happening, the bishop starts to make out with one of the boys, and while that is also happening, we see one of the girls comfort another girl who says she can't take it anymore. And it's very sad because of what is happening, but it is nice to see some actual love and care being shown in this horrible scenario. But overall, that concludes the second circle, which means we move on to the third circle, which is the circle of shit. At the start of this circle, we get a different prostitute to take the center stage, and she starts with her own story, but first she shows her ass, then starts talking about how she had a meal with a lot of laxatives in it. By the way, all this is happening while 3 people are being groped all at the same time while she's telling the story in the background. Anyways, she talks about how she was forced to crap out her excrement, and then the man that wanted her to do that asked her to feed it to him while he acted like a baby. The Duke then goes on to a spiel about how mothers aren't owed anything, and how mothers should be grateful they have a pleasure with a man, and how the Duke killed his mother and took pleasure in it. This causes one of the female prisoners to burst out into tears, and this son of a bitch, the Duke, has the audacity to say, "Gee, why is she crying? I don't know, maybe because you're forced to be a sex slave in a castle in Italy." the fascists start to mock her for crying. And not only that, but it is actually punishable to preach to God and cry in here. So her punishment is they strip her down naked, and of course, since she asked God to help her and please take pity on her, they write her name in the black book. But that is not our only punishment. The Duke then takes a crap on the floor and makes the young girl eat it. This movie shows a lot of mess up stuff, but I just don't understand the reasoning for this scene. I mean, I guess to show the humiliation, or maybe Pierre, the director of this movie, witnessed this in his own life and just wanted to put it in. But it's just a very gross scene, and it's very sad to see this poor girl in this situation. But don't worry, it gets worse. The president has a shit kink, I guess, and wants to make sure no one craps because he wants them to all do it in one big tub. So he goes to the boys and females' rooms to make sure no one crapped in their buckets. And he goes there and he sees one of the females did in fact crap in one of the buckets and gets pissed and writes her name in the black book. Then they go to the boys and we see one of the boys also took a crap and is written in the black book. Now, I mentioned the black book a few times here, and you're probably wondering what this means, but we will get to the black book later and why it's important that you don't get your name written on that thing. Anyways, the male prisoner who is married is now in a bride gown and is getting married to the magistrate. And for the ceremony, they are served piles of shit. You shouldn't be shocked at this point. This movie is just smut at this point. Anyways, one of the hoes is dancing with the bishop, spouting about some dumb bullshit. During the speech, the Duke takes one of the girls in the room and gets her to piss on his face. I want these characters to die so brutally in this movie. It's all I want right now. It's all I want, alright? That's all I want to see right now. But we don't get that. Instead, we get the Duke and the bishop have a talk about how wrong the act of sodomite is. The act of sodomite signifies the death of the human species. And the bishop goes on to say, a worse act than sodomite is the act of the executioner. And if you haven't realized this at this point, these people are evil because, duh, but of course they are. But the reason they're evil isn't some grand scheme or ulterior motive. They're doing this because they want to cause pain to others. And you may think, of course, duh, that's why they're doing it. But when you think about horror films or just evilness in a second, there's always a reasoning to it. Jason kills camp counselors because he was bullied and they didn't save him. He doesn't kill them because he likes torturing them. He kills them for revenge and hatred. Or even the movie Martyrs, another disturbing movie. The people in that movie are being tortured, not because the people want to see it and take pleasure from it. They're torturing people so they can torture them to an extent that they can see God or the afterlife. Again, it's evil, but they have a motive to that evilness. And like most demons and the devil in movies, their evil stems from disobeying God and to metaphorically spit into God's face by killing humans or torturing humans. But in Salo, the Fascist Four, God, I'm making them sound like a freaking supervillain group right now. The Fascist Four aren't doing these evils because it gets them more power in life or gets them to their end goal. They're just doing it because it is evil. They're doing sodomy because they believe sodomy is so evil, that's why they're doing it. They believe executioning people is so evil, that is why they're doing it. They're just pure evil, and that is why they do it. They're purely doing it just to ruin lives. And unlike the other evils I mentioned, at least they have a motive, as the evils they're doing are just plain and sick and gross. And it's something in a film I really haven't seen in a while, or a lot of films don't do it, and it kind of makes it unique, but also makes it very disgusting at the same time. Back to the movie. In the next scene we see, one of the prostitutes has all the females bent over and naked in a dark room, and the Fascist Four all are judging the best rump. So they shine flashlights and look at every single one, like they're looking at plywood in Home Depot. They find their best butt, but it turns out to be one of the boys, and this gets the men furious, and they're about to execute the boy, but don't, and say death is a too easy way of an out. And then the boy is also written in the black book. Back in the main hall, the prostitute talks about another poop story, and that concludes the circle of shit. The circle of blood. This circle starts with the Fascist Four all dressed up as women. And here, let's get to watch the scene together. Come on, let's watch it together. Let's watch it together. See, wasn't that a goofy scene? Wasn't that a fun, goofy scene? The three fascists are getting ready to marry the studs, while the fourth fascist, the bishop, marries them. We then cut to one of the studs getting down with the bishop. More uncomfortable scenes for everyone. No, just me. Just me, actually. The bishop then goes to the boys' room, where one of the boys rats out one of the girls as she gets a photograph under her pillow, which is forbidden. Then the girl that did that gets caught, but then she rats out two girls for being together. Then those girls get caught, but then those girls rat out the guard Enzio, the guard who actually doesn't like what he's doing, for hooking up with one of the cooks. The fascists catch Ezio making love with the cook, and they break it up. But instead of ratting out another person, Ezio stands up and raises his fist in the air in a sign of defiance. And the way he raises his fist is a movement used by the communists during World War II. As in World War II, fascist Italy was heavily against communism. And when he does this, the fascists lower their guns and appear shocked. Ezio doesn't lower his fist, and the fascists raise their guns again and kill him. Then they also kill the cook. Now, right here, it is my favorite scene in the movie, because it truly shows the only time the main villains don't win and actually lose. They're always say a quick death is an easy way out, and they want to torture their victims. But right here, Ezio raises his fist in a sign of saying, "F*** you," but going out in a blaze of glory. Can't say I loved a lot of scenes in this movie, but I'll say this scene was very good. And the next scene, they just seem genuinely defeated, because they genuinely didn't get their way. They're in power, but that was the one scene in this whole movie where they're not in control. Sure, they did kill him, but that was the one time that they felt like, oh shit. They kind of felt powerless in that moment for a second. He did end up dead, but Ezio was honestly probably the best character in this movie. Outside the prisoners, Ezio was the most likable character in this movie. But let's get off to more crappy stuff, alright? Our next scene sets up our finale, where they set some males and females with blue ribbons, and the rest who don't get ribbons go back to Salo. The ones with blue ribbons, if you guessed it, are the ones written in the Black Book, which will not be good, as you will soon see. We then get our final monologue with the prostitutes. This time, it's just the fascists and the studs and the guards in the room. She's basically just explaining to the fascists what they've been doing this whole time and what they're about to do to the remaining prisoners. We then see the remaining prisoners with the blue ribbons in the bathroom, while some of them are sitting in a tub of crap. To the side, we see 3 guards playing cards with not a care in the world. We then get our final scene, where we see each fascist take turns sitting in a chair, looking through the window, and watching other fascists, guards, and studs torture and grape the young boys and girls. During the torture, we see the piano player seeming to not take any more of this, and she throws herself off a balcony, unaliving herself. Back to the torture ceremony, we see some horrible things. And I'll give the scene credit right here. They do a tongue scene where he gets his tongue cut out and his eye cut out, and the effects actually aren't that bad. Then we see a young girl get scalped, and it's brutally horrible. For effects, it looks good, but it's just horrible. The group continues to torture and violate these people's bodies. Then we get our final shot of the 2 young guards dancing and talking about their girlfriends back in town like it's another Tuesday for them. And that, my friends, is the movie Salo, or the 120 Days of Sodom. And that is Salo. Now, that was a lot. Do I regret watching this movie? Yes. But I watched it, and now I'm going to subject all of you to listen to what happened in the movie, because I can't be the only victim here. You guys are victims too now. Sorry. But let me just say this first. Do I think objectively this film is good from a technical standpoint of acting, shots, the camera, cinematography, all that baloney? I think yes, pretty solid, I would say. There's good cinematography, there's good shots, the acting is pretty good from the adult actors, and some of the young actors are pretty good as well, and some of the shots are practical with the feces and the tongue scene and the eye scene. Those things are practical, they look pretty good for the 70s. So yeah, it's not bad. But objectively, do I like this movie? No. F*** this movie. F*** this movie. I f***ing hate this f***ing movie. God damn. Call me American brained or whatever. Well, it's the cliche thing where it's when a foreign country does a horror movie, it's usually very depressing with a sad ending. Then when an American converts that to their audience, they usually have a hero in the end. I was just hoping this entire time a hero would emerge. One of the guards, Ezio, would be starting a rebellion and save the kids and kill all of them, like Schindler and Schindler's List. Or someone comes in and saves the day. And that's all I really wanted from this movie, and it never happened. But that's kind of the point of the movie at the same time, is that it's supposed to be reality. In reality, there's not this hero that comes and saves everyone. It's usually pretty brutal and bleak and ends very anticlimactically, which the movie did. So it was what the movie was going for, so I'll give it that. But man, I just really wanted f***ing Kratos to bust down the door and start cutting people's heads off, rip off the magistrate's head, gouge out the Duke's eyes. That'd have been awesome. But hey man, that's what the movie is. And as much as I just hate this movie, it is what happens in real life, and it is heartbreaking and sad. But these horrors aren't just fiction, they're real, and I think that's what Pierre was going for. And I think he was also saying that people in power technically can do whatever they want, and people in power probably have done this stuff in real life and are probably doing it today still. It's unfortunate. But I'm not going to glaze Pier Paolo Pasolini that much, because this dude was not a good person either. He wasn't going in there and just showing the horrors, and you need to know these horrors because it's happening. No, this guy was actually an asshole, all right? Pier Paolo Pasolini was 41, and he claimed to meet the love of his life, who was a 15-year-old, and in 1949, he was charged with obscene acts and corruption with minors with 3 teenage boys. And watching this film and seeing the scenes with the fascists, with the teenage boys, it makes it feel way more uncomfortable considering Paglioli's past. And this is probably why Pier got killed. Yes, 3 weeks before this movie was released, Pier Paolo Pasolini was murdered. 3 weeks before Salo premiered. Brutally killed, mind you. And oh, by the way, the guy who wrote the 120 Days of Sodom, that French guy, Marquis de Sade, was also a piece of shit. He was jailed in 1780 because he was abusing women, kidnapping, and abusing minors. Dude sucked balls. And it makes his writings even more disturbing because he probably did the stuff he wrote in the novel. By the way, the novel is way worse than the movie. I'm not covering the novel. You can look it up yourself. I'm not doing that. I covered the movie. You're welcome. Or, I'm sorry. And that is my video, everybody. Did you enjoy this video? I don't know if I did. If this felt like information to you, then you're welcome. If you felt like this did nothing for you, I'm sorry. But I saw this on Wendigoon's disturbing movie Iceberg, and I thought, hey, I'll watch it. I watched it, and I'm thinking, do I really want to make a video on this? And I contemplated for a few days, and I'm like, I already watched it. I'll just do it. Was it fun? It was probably this is probably the least fun I had making a video, you guys. But that is just what it is at the end of the day, and hopefully you guys enjoy the video. But if not, then I don't blame you. But that's it for me. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye now.